Hi guys, Terry here with Truth in Numbers. Hope you all are doing well out there. I have some content here today, and I think about back in 2015 or since 2015, we've been dealing with the flying monkeys, throwing stuff all over the place since that escalator event. And I I think about that, and I think about where we're at now. I know we're stronger now. I know we're more connected and more collaborative, and we have an awesome coalition. So, so in the middle of all the flying monkeys activity, every once in a while there's something that's shocking. I mean, exceptionally shocking. It's all quite over the top, but exceptionally shocking. And then every once in a while, something just gets to me in a way that is like, I just want to call BS. And that's today. So I'll try to move through this relatively quickly, but just wanted to talk about some of the negative themes that just don't make sense from this particular thing that got to me. And that is Tucker Carlson's dad's home speech. We've all heard about it or watched it on the TV, and there's a couple of themes in there that I just wanted to kind of pull out. So, hashtag not a pro, but I, like others, are just reading stuff, listening to things, trying to figure stuff out. So I'm just going to do a little light armchair exegesis of this text and kind of process it, a little bit, and pull out a couple of themes that I think they were trying to develop, hopefully unsatisfactorily. But so this is Tucker's speech from Georgia. So he did give a speech at Madison Square Garden, and that the Georgia speech has the more content to it, and is the more bizarre. And I just kind of wanted to use that to kind of solidify some of the things I think they might be trying to do there. So it starts out where Tucker gets up on the stage and introduces himself. He says I'm glad to be here. I've never in my life spoken at a political rally. I've covered a million of them for over 30 years, and but I've never spoken at one. I thought I would. Anyway, I can't read my writing very well, but I transcribed this pretty quickly. I'm so thrilled, he goes on to say. I'm honored to be here. I really am. And that's when he crosses his arms, guys. And after he crosses his arms, he says, I am. It's totally without shame, and I'm entirely filled with gratitude, or something to that effect. So sounds like he has a little bit of shame and may have had to be there without much of a choice. But all this to say, he goes on to say a little bit later on that none of the normal people are supporting the Democrat machine. Tim Walz is supporting the Democrat machine, a man you would never allow to babysit your own children. That is a lie. It's been proven a lie. There's no evidence to that effect, and it's an actual nasty smear against the man. Not atypical, unconscionable. Then he goes on to say, it's the party of weirdos, of envy, of hate, of resentment, of bitterness, of weakness, of a total lack of creativity. It's a party of conformity. It's a party of a machine without... I won't go into any further. I'll stop with it's a party of conformity. So let's take the weirdo part out of it. That's an ad hominem argument. We can put it aside. It's there for a reason. But let's look at envy, party of hate, of resentment, of bitterness. And hashtag projection. That's what that is. That's a lot of projection. It's not to say that there isn't resentment and bitterness on our side, but the campaign now is of hope and joy and moving forward and positivity. So it's just smacks of a message that they want people to believe versus reality. So going forward, further down, he says that the country, his group, is slowly waking up to the fact that these people have no moral authority whatsoever. They have no legitimacy in a democracy. Again, totally out there. First of all, apparently the morality comment at a convention and maybe some other speeches clearly got to people. So let's leave that off. That's a subjective value consideration. But let's talk about this thing about no legitimacy in a democracy. The Democratic Party is one of two long-standing parties since the shortly after the Civil War, I believe. So we're talking 1800s to now, the 21st century. The Democratic Party is a legitimate party. The GOP is a legitimate party. We might not like how they look. They're not the conservative party that they were back in the 1980s. I remember the 80s. This is not the same. These things are not the same. But it is a legitimate party. We might not like that party. We might not like their lack of productivity. It's a legitimate party. So is the Democrat Party. Anyway, you see where I'm going. You see where my headspace is at. So then looking at this next set, the way they're treating this country over the past 4 years is the most shocking thing I have ever seen in my 55 years, says Tucker. Okay. It's a little inflammatory speech, but he apparently feels that way. To allow millions of people, mostly young men, with no skills and no English, illegally, come into this country illegally and then fly them around at taxpayer expense and give them phones and put them on welfare programs that no American citizen can get. So a lot going on there. Tucker's got a lot going on. It tickles me that he has an issue with mostly young men, mostly young men. So they're young men that want to pull their families, get a good life started and pull the rest of their families in. So they're young men who are going to work and do jobs that other young men in America that don't want to do. It tickles me. So the absurdity of the ridiculous, right? So then he talks about flying these immigrants around, and I'm doing this as a consumer of content, on the fly. This is kind of like my thought process as I go through here. I don't know that the Democrats haven't flown people around. But honestly, the only reports that I have, but again, I'm in one news silo, and I have not stopped to look up and see if there's taken the time to look up and see if there's other immigrants being flown around the country. But the only ones I've heard of are the GOP governors, or I think just governors, GOP governors that have flown people to Democratic states as a statement, as a ploy, and potentially illegally. So that's that. The phone thing, that's been around since Obama was president. Again, I have not researched that, but I'm sitting here consciously going, I don't know for sure, but it might not be true. And then this putting them on welfare programs that no American citizen can get. And I don't know what assistance the immigrants are getting, but I resent the accusation that immigrants are getting support. It's called welfare, but by him, but are getting support that no American citizen can get. Americans have their own system of support. They can't get the immigrant support because it's for immigrants. I mean, that's the first thought I have. I mean, maybe that's not the most logical response to it, but I'm thinking, of course they can't get the immigrant, uh, assistance because it's tailored for immigrants. Anyway, you see where my brain is. Not yet on fire, but heck, guys, this is crazy. So then he goes on to say, it takes incredible stones, incredible gall for the people who did that, whatever that is, the above, to stand up there on the stage and give a lecture about how you're immoral. It's too much. So it takes incredible gall for people to get up there and give a lecture. I don't know that it was a lecture. I think it was probably a comment. And honestly, it was under the First Amendment. So it's politics. And it feels whiny. This part feels whiny. And dude, this is free speech. It's free speech. Deal with it. We all got to be adults. See, a little bit of my attitude, guys. So then he says, you are not in a despised minority. You are in an incredibly gentle and tolerant majority. Okay, I'll call BS on that. They're not a minority. I mean, it says you're not in a despised minority. You're in an incredibly gentle and tolerant majority. First of all, they're not a majority. The coalition that's pro-democracy is anti-authoritarian, let's put it that way, is larger. And if he wants to say despised, you're not a despised minority, which is apparently how they're feeling. I would have to say that we shouldn't despise them. I mean, these are my friends and family, guys. These are my coworkers. They're smart people. They're loving people. They're kind people. What we see on the news is not gentle and tolerant all the time, but boots on the ground, relationships, real stuff, reality, ground zero. These people are not to be despised. They are in a different silo of news. They're making the best decisions that they can. I feel like many can maybe very misinformed, but I don't despise them. I don't think we should despise them at all. But when it comes to this gentle and tolerant majority, I do see road rage more. I have my own road rage sometimes, but back in 2014, Lindsey Graham said, we can't make enough angry white guys to stay in power. And that's definitely a thing out there. So there's this activation of the amygdala, I think, that's going on. But apart from that, they shouldn't feel despised, or they might say they feel despised. But my call is to not in our hearts despise these people. So they tear down statues. They're talking about the Confederate statues. I'm going to leave that alone. But they went out of their way to humiliate and spit on you, and spit on you and the graves of your ancestors. It's not an exaggeration. They did that. This country is so nice, so polite. It's so empathetic and sweet. It's the kind of country that loves dogs and gives directions to strangers. So weird, but not to argue that these people aren't like that. The point is that he's setting up a paradigm. And the paradigm is that they're good people. And most of, I would say the large majority of people who vote for Trump are good people. I mean, we get the low lights in media, but that's not what this is about. This is setting up a paradigm to say, you guys are good people, and you know what? You've put up with this crap a long time, and it's time, and you don't need. It's time to. You don't have to be good anymore. You cannot put up with it anymore. You don't have to be good anymore. Because he goes on to say, and he says, we put up, we put up a lot. We've put up, we've put up for a lot. I don't know what the phrase is. It's not coming out of my mouth right. We've put up with a lot for 4 years, but we can't anymore. We just can't. So he's saying, we're good people, but we put up with this for 4 years, and we can't put up with it anymore. So, infer that it's okay to not be good anymore. We're justified in doing all this. So then Tux crosses his arms again, and he says, the first reason we can't put up with it for one more minute, he says, is because it's just not justice. It's not. He says, it's not justice. It's unfair. You cannot reward the most parasitic, useless, violent, nasty, abusive people in your country. Okay, rhetoric. So, and then I think, I wish I could had it at the ready when I talk to friends. It's like, listen to this stuff. When it's over the top like this, that's manipulation. You can't take a whole swath of people and make them all parasites, all useless, all violent, nasty, abusive. That is all kinds of crazy. But let's stop for a second and take a look at this. It's not justice. He's conflating grievance with illegality. Justice comes into play when you're dealing with someone breaking the law. Grievance comes into play when you don't like the way somebody used their First Amendment rights. But by calling grievance or envy, what else did he say? Or useless or violent or nasty or abusive, conflating that with illegality and not being justice, that conflation is dangerous. So then he goes down to, let's go on to the next one. He complains that, here's the other part of the equation. Bear with me here while I get to this out to you all. So, all right, I got to read this. You can't, let's see, I can't make them, bear with me. He's still got his arms crossed. In a fair, decent country, the people who work the hardest, who have the highest level of talent, who are the most creative, again, creativity, are the most decent to their neighbors, who give the biggest tips to waitresses, those people should be successful. Those people should be rewarded, or revered, revered. Okay, another load of crap, honestly. And I was thinking about this, and this is how I came down on it, think of it what you will. So in the first part, he's saying, you guys are good people and you don't have to put it up with anymore. The second part, he's saying that it's just not justice. It's just not fair. And these people are nasty, awful, dehumanizing, whoever these people are. The Democrats, the non-Trump people. That's conflating grievance with illegality and slapping justice on it, like it's not justice. Dangerous. It's like a setup for extrajudicial activity, which is dangerous. Autocracy. We don't want to go Duterte. So then this thing about these are the people who should be successful. These are the people who should be revered. That to me is an autocratic, it foreshadows autocratic favor, which is always a manipulation. It's always conditional. It's always about being controlled. I'm using always, but for the most part, that's where it leads. So autocratic favor and autocratic discipline, or autocratic accountability for whatever grievances du jour. So then he complains about Kamala, and he says she has no skills. She shouldn't have a job. How did she wind up in a system where Kamala Harris couldn't change the tire on your truck? You know, I know there was a thing about, you know, Trump not being able to change a tire, but odd. We'll just say Tucker's gone to the odd side. And how did she wind up at the top of the pyramid? And then once she's there, she lectures you like you did something. It's too much. We can't allow that. It's an offense against the truth, against reality, and against justice itself. Again, here's a woman at the top of the ticket for this election cycle. And again, they're having issues with her First Amendment speech and calling it a lecture to probably put people on the defensive about who she is and what she has to say. I think it's kind of rich that they're saying it's an offense against the truth when the GOP was very it's a lot of projection, you know, because they're the ones that came up with alternative truth, and Rudy's been, you know, on tape saying there is no truth. You know, what is truth? There is no truth. And then, you know, the former president over 4 years lied 35,000 times, somewhere in the 30,000s. And I've mentioned that to friends, and they say, well, all politicians lie. And I'm like, no, not 30 some thousand times in 4 years. So is the response, and it's like, well, there's a reason why somebody's lying for 30,000 times a year, in 4 years, etc. So anyway, it's just a slice of life there on a conversation, but kind of rich. But then he throws in, it's an offense against truth, against reality, and against justice itself. Again, not illegal stuff that they're engaged in for sure as well. And it's not illegal. So he's throwing in the justice to conflate it, to make extrajudicial, it's hard for me to say today, activity justified in an autocratic realm, if you will. If you allow it, he says, the second reason you can't allow this is very familiar to anyone who has children, which, and we're getting into the really weird stuff, guys. If you allow it, you will encourage it more. You will encourage more of it. If you allow people to get away with things that are completely over the top and outrageous, if you allow your 2-year-old to smear the contents of his diaper on the wall, he's really saying this, on the wall of your living room, and you do nothing about it, if you allow your 14-year-old to light up a joint at the breakfast table, if you allow your hormone-addled 15-year-old daughter to, like, slam the door and give you the finger, you're going to get more of it. And these kids are going to wind up in rehab. It's not good for you. It's not good for them. No, there has to be a point at which dad comes home. And that's when the crowd erupts. They erupt because dad comes home. And that's a very patriarchal family unit response. We all can relate to that, you know. If you've had a dad in home, dad comes home and can add another layer of discipline. But in the political context, guys, so very weird. And here's the thing. He goes on and he says, I mean, he's conditioning the crowd to reach for a father figure. And I'll just stop here. I understand that people need father figures and mother figures, mom figures. To look to a politician for that is so unhealthy. It is so not a father figure that you're looking for. that you're really getting. I mean, a father figure is somebody who you have a connection with beyond the TV, a connection that you have in day-to-day life or ongoing over months or years, someone that you have a relationship with, a back and forth with. That's a father figure. It's not a politician. And honestly, for all that we know about politics, and no offense to politicians, I don't want to say that, but they're fathers figures to their children, to their grandchildren, etc. Maybe people in the neighborhood, you know, that happens too, or you pick up a few strays and stuff. But it's so not good to put the daddy stuff on a politician. And the crowd's erupting because they understand the dynamic when dad comes home and does discipline, but it is malpractice, I think, to conflate these two onto a political leader, the dear leader. It's just, it's alarming and sad and all the things. I mean, we know the pressure points, we know the things that raise our blood pressure, etc. But shame on them, really, honestly. And I'm not a big person saying shame on them, but this is pretty bad, in my opinion. So he said, yeah, that's right. Dad comes home and he's pissed. Dad is pissed. He's not vengeful. He loves his children, disobedient as they may be. He loves them because they're his children. They live in his house. But he's very disappointed in them, in their behavior. And he's going to have to let them know. Get to your room right now and think about what you've done, in quotes, so to speak. And when dad gets home, you know what he says. You've been a bad girl. You've been a bad little girl, and you're going to get a vigorous spanking right now. So, okay, weird. Subtones of sexual stuff there. Weird. And with the construct of the speech where he was talking about Kamala beforehand. And now he's gone to this bad little girl, not the bad little boy, not the kid who smeared his diaper contents, not the kid who lit up a joint at breakfast, but the girl. You know, in my opinion, it's shades of threat against Kamala. Pros would know, but that's how it feels, and it's really, you know, junk. It's really junk. So he goes on as the father figure and says, and no, it's not going to hurt me more than it's going to hurt you. No, it's not. It's I'm not going to lie. It's going to hurt you a lot more than it hurts me, and you earned this. You're getting a vigorous spanking because you've been a bad girl. And at this point, I looked at the YouTube video of it, and he doesn't have his arms crossed, so he's clearly not defensive about this. So he says it has to be this way because it's true. And you're only going to get better when you take responsibility for what you did. So, and then he goes on this, I'm not saying this in a spirit of hate. We all know in families, if in healthy families, that when a parent disciplines the kids, they love their kids. They might be angry, but they're trying to apply discipline in order for correction and not vengeance. When you're talking about government where people haven't broken the law but you still want to discipline them, you want to discipline a woman who is articulate and has had several professional positions, is highly qualified. If she doesn't win the election, you're going to discipline her for stuff that is not illegal because it's just not right, and you don't want to put up with it anymore. You don't want to put up with the free speech. What is it? What is it? So, so much gaslighting and so much. Let me add this one last thing here. He says further down, hey, I'm not beating up on Harris. And he goes on to explain that she's just a pawn. But honestly, if you literally, well, figuratively, whatever you want to call it, threaten somebody, you start talking about judicial, sorry guys, today's hard, activity. So when people haven't broken the law, but you still want to punish them, and then saying, I'm not beating up on her. I'm not really threatening her. I just threatened her, but I really didn't threaten her. That's abuser language. Clear, plain and simple. That's abuser language. And it's interesting because, you know, I need to get to a point where I can tell my friends, you know, people I talk to, that whenever you see like dysfunctional language, abuser language, like manipulative, you know, gaslighting and all the things, when somebody's constantly in their victim mode, I mean, it's just, that's dysfunctional. That's unhealthy. That's somebody who's unhealthy. It's manipulative. And that's a real sign to just run away from that person, because that is, their goal is to manipulate, and the goal is not to govern. And so, you know, let me take a look at this in closing. So just wanting to say that they're labeling non-illegal stuff, non-illegal activity as illegal. They're applying justice to things that are legal, but that they just don't like. They are setting up a mindset of favoring, having autocratic favor on certain people, and then also practicing this punishment of people who haven't broken the law. The dad thing, the little girl with vigorous spankings, things, you know, it's just a bridge too far for me, and I felt like griping about it, if you will. So that's it on that. Just kind of wanted to break it down, break it out a little bit, because messy and icky, and I just needed to understand it a little bit better. So if you're still here, thank you for joining me on this. And, you know, hey, we need to keep taking good care of ourselves out there. And I'll see you next time. Bye.